the podcast channel in general feels like it's been underrepresented in things like planning tools. There's still a lot of advertisers and agencies out there that are planning based on reach, and the fact that podcasts were typically missing from those planning tools means, as an industry, we're not really even being taken into consideration. And so what we sought out to do here is to create the industry's first podcast reach curve. And as we are looking through the results here, there's some interesting things that we can derive based on all of the data points that we have and the campaigns that we track on a daily basis. I think the first interesting thing is, okay, so if we were to reach, let's say, all of the podcast audience in the US, it's anywhere from like 130 to 150 million people, depending on the source where you're looking for that information. Now, the way to actually achieve that kind of reach might take upwards of 2 billion impressions on a monthly basis. Certainly a big number, but not out of reach for some of the largest advertisers out in the ecosystem. But where 99% of advertisers live is in that sort of small little bottom left quadrant, where folks are anywhere from 1 to, let's say, 300 million impressions. And we're reaching about a third of the podcast audience through those efforts. So still a lot of room to grow within the podcast industry today. A lot of listeners still yet to be hit to that point, something that we are doing a lot of today is talking to the advertisers and the buyers that are out there and allowing them to incorporate this data into their planning tools. And so if you reach out to us, no pun intended, but reach@podscribe.com, we're more than happy to share that information with you. So that way this stuff can start to be incorporated and, we can start considering podcasts more often, more frequently when choosing our omni-channel mix. Now, all of that said, here is the next poll. So Pete kind of alluded to it a little bit in the beginning. I could have sworn I hit that button. There we go. First time I'm doing slides. Sorry, guys. So here's the concept. We want to understand, what do you think in terms of the overlap between streaming audio and podcasts? How much overlap is there? Is there about 0%? Are they totally unique, different channels in terms of audience? Is it less than half? Is it more than half? Or is it just total overlap? I don't know. The answer is it's about 20% overlap is what it is. And so when you consider that 20% overlap and we start overlaying our reach data again on these reach curves, first of all, you can kind of eyeball when you look at podcasts in isolation and streaming in isolation, and then sort of look at that combined green line there. It almost looks like it's not a lot of overlap. It almost looks like they're completely unique, and they're not. There's 20% overlap there. But I think the big headline here is that, hey, I can reach upwards of 130 to 150 million people in podcasts. I can reach like over 150 million people in streaming with that lower overlap that we're reporting. When using both of these channels combined, we can reach upwards of 85 or more % of the US adult population. This is just within digital audio. Now, I think a lot of people don't think of digital audio as a reach play. We might think about radio or TV as a reach play, maybe even social, but digital audio really does play in that space, seeing that 85% of people can be reached here within these two channels. So found this to be a fascinating view of the data, and would love to kind of hear if folks have interest in seeing both the streaming and the podcast reach data and incorporating that into their planning tools. Because again, we just want to ensure that, hey, we are being considered as folks are thinking about their omni-channel mix.